Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Angela, and this is the second of a series of interviews of people that I just want parents to get the opportunity to hear from. And in some cases, young people too, because they have a wealth of knowledge and can give you a perspective that will be helpful. So this is Miss Judy Berhannan, better known as Dean Berhannan, and I'm going to let her formally introduce herself to you. We've known each other all of our lives.
Of our lives. Yeah.
So uh, I don't call her Dean Berhannan, but she's going to introduce herself.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Judy Berhannan, and I recently retired from my career in college admissions. 38 years in the field of higher education, in the field of college admission at both private and public universities. And I must say, a career that I dearly loved, one that allowed me such wonderful and meaningful engagement with parents and students. I started out in life thinking that I might be an English teacher. And at the point that I graduated from college, there were not a lot of opportunities in the teaching field, unlike what that looks like now. And somehow I ended up finding my way into college admission. And in that capacity, I've had over the years a lot of opportunities to have conversations with parents and students about what's important to them, what their goals are, and also really to help and support them in the process. So I'm happy to share kind of from an inside view a little bit about what goes on in the admission process.
Okay, so the biggest thing I think I speak to parents about is this view that you prepare for college in ninth, 10th, 11th grade. And I advocate starting ideally at least fifth grade. And I wanted to know if you have noticed that that makes a difference, that some people that they come to you more prepared than others, and what that looks like from a
Mhm.
college's perspective.
Mhm. I think what is frightening to me is that um, there is a belief that it takes place or preparation for college or the college application process is confined to junior and senior year in high school, not even reaching the ninth and 10th grade level. So your approach is one that I embrace wholeheartedly, um, because as we know, the way that students are guided and their opportunities to partake in particularly certain academic coursework, and also advanced level courses is going to be determined really at that critical middle school level. So the building blocks that are being formed in those elementary years are so important in preparing the foundation for students to really take that next level. And I think really the exploration, when we see families that have really been very closely aligned and working with their child, their school community, their teachers, their counselors, to really work with and strengthen the child from year to year. We see that when they hit that ninth and 10th grade, that they are able, if they're a student who is strong in their verbal and social skills, that might be the student that's able to be guided to take that advanced literature course or to take that special social studies curriculum or to take part in a student government internship, because they have developed a self-awareness. They've developed some key foundation skills and key communication skills. I think the thing that is very, very important in those early years is developing strong communication skills, a sense of identity for that young person, and an ability to start to define for themselves their strengths, their interests, and their goals.
Very good. Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you. I would like, if you can, I would like for you to explain in general terms the process that the college goes through
Mhm.
um, from beginning to end when a student first makes themselves known to you, and
Okay.
kind of what that looks like from the school's perspective
Mhm.
as opposed to from the parent or student perspective.
Certainly. Um, okay. From our perspective, we are casting in as early as Dr. Angela says, as early as those middle school years and early high school years. We start casting our net to look for prospects, to look for students who might be prospective students, maybe not this year, maybe 2 years from now, maybe 3 years from now. We start casting our net. We become aware of your young people through various databases. There's a whole marketing industry out there that is really identifying children who have enrolled in special camps, students who are enrolled in athletic leagues, etc. And colleges and universities can buy your student's name, and they become available to us through various marketing lists. The biggest marketing list in the industry is the College Board and the ACT. As a result of your student taking standardized testing, colleges and universities, should you or your student grant permission when they take the test, there's a simple checkoff box that says, I give my permission for my demographic information and my test results to be shared with colleges and universities and other educational institutions for the purpose of receiving information about college opportunities and scholarships. So when your student checks that box off, their test results, their home address, certain characteristics that they have, information, demographic information that they've supplied becomes available to us. And we'll start reaching out to those young people. It's gotten kind of a little bit outrageous and a little bit overboard. When I began in this field, the earliest, and that was 30 plus years ago, the earliest that we would make contact with a student was their junior year. Now colleges and universities are reaching out to high school sophomores and even to high school freshmen in some cases. But really at some point, they're not ready yet to receive the information, and they're not ready to absorb it, digest it, or utilize it. So the common knowledge is really to start really doing your extensive outreach at the college level in that junior year, heading into the senior year. So your sons and daughters are going to be receiving brochures and emails and text messages, etc., because they have opted in to receive this information. As we have moved away from snail mail, I have found that parents are kind of left on the margins of
Mhm.
what their son or daughter is receiving. And to me, it's a lost opportunity. My last 5 to 10 years in the field of admissions, I, among many others who were in the field for quite a while, advocated that we not lose our print publications and not move totally away from sending mail to families at home. Give that parent an opportunity to see the material and the information about the college and colleges and universities, and help them to shop with their sons and daughters.
Mhm.
So when your child goes to a college fair, they will often provide their contact information to a representative who will then follow up with them, whether that be with, again, an email, a text, a print publication. So we cast a wide net as we move into really first to hopefully attract you and encourage you to apply to us. So as the process begins, the ball is in your court. I call it a kind of tennis match. So the ball's in your court to begin with. So we're hoping that, as a result of our outreach, we will generate your interest in our institution and that you will eventually apply. Once the student submits those applications, the ball's in our court. So the timeline for the college application is basically leading up to senior year, sophomore, junior year. The ball is in your court. You are the consumer. You are shopping. You are researching. You are making college visits. You are making comparisons. You are the consumer. You're gathering the information that you need to determine the student, the family, which colleges and universities you'll ultimately apply to. Senior year into fall, and as early as possible in the fall, September, October, November. My rule of thumb is really get those applications done before Halloween. If your child is applying early decision or early action, then they must apply really by November 1st or November 15. If your child is applying regular admission or rolling decision, then applications may be accepted well into December. But you want to be aware of any deadlines for any special programs or scholarships. But anyway, once that application comes to us, the ball is in our court. And we start our application, we start compiling applications and starting the process of review. I have worked with both rolling admissions plans and also with programs, early action or early decision. In the process of an early action plan or early decision, it is very important that all application materials be received by the deadline. So if the deadline is November 1 or November 15, the application must be submitted, the high school transcript must be there, the student's essay must be there, and any letters of recommendation must be there in order for that application to be complete. If the application is received, meaning the basic part, where do you live? What are you interested in? The basic part of the application, but something's missing. Maybe, oh, I'm sorry, I meant to also mention the standardized test scores. So say you submit that application for an early action school and you've submitted your application, you submitted your transcript. That school requires at least 2 letters of recommendation. Maybe one of your recommenders submitted the recommendation on time, but the other one did not, or for some reason that wasn't received. Guess what? That application will not be reviewed. That application will be determined to be incomplete, and
It
it
just
just
sits there.
It just sits there.
Mhm.
In fairness to the student, as soon as we receive an application, if you submit an application to us at the end of September or in October, we will immediately send a follow-up or a little checklist saying, thank you for your application. Please be aware, you still need this, this, and this. That checklist or that information goes to the student. The parent does not receive that communication. So once your child initiates an application, it's very important that your child on a routine basis, whether that's every 2 to 3 days or once a week, goes into their portal for that application and checks to see if there's any communication. Is there anything missing? Has the college reached out to me for any reason? Because that's where we will begin communicating with you, with the student throughout the application process. Again, if an application, if a college or university has a deadline for receipt of application and materials, for early action and early decision, they mean everything. For a rolling admission to school or a regular decision school, typically the process is that we need to get your application by a specific date, and we will review applications on a rolling basis as you complete your file. So you're perfectly good if you get your application in by December, but we're not going to review you until we receive all of the materials. Okay, so it's important, again, that students be disciplined about not only submitting the application part, which is kind of maybe 20 minutes, half an hour of their time, if you're not including the essay. The pieces that typically require time or that people will procrastinate about are the essay segments.
Mhm.
So it's important that, students get themselves together and get those essays done and bite the bullet and push submit, get those essays out so that your applications are complete as early as possible in the process. Having worked for a large public institution, I can tell you, even though we were rolling admissions and we would gladly review your application in January or February, if we still had the space. There's the caveat.
Mhm.
Um, just because the admission process is still open, meaning we will accept your application, you may be jeopardizing your opportunity because we will close applications, or we will stop reviewing applications once that particular major or program that you are interested in has reached capacity.
Mhm.
College admission from the institutional end side of it is a supply and demand business.
Absolutely.
So my year would begin as a dean of admissions in June. So in June of 2024, the senior administrators would get together with the enrollment managers and basically share what their projections would be for the coming year for the incoming class. The deans of the natural sciences would say, we have 300 seats for incoming freshmen in bio. We've got 250 in chemistry. We've got 80 in physics. We've got, 45 in environmental science. The admissions office, our role is to make that class. to select out of the pool of applicants the students that we felt were best qualified to fill those seats. We did not have unlimited seats to fill. And I think the saddest thing or the least enjoyable part of working in college admissions is having to deny students who are well qualified once we no longer had space or capacity within a program. Certain programs are high demand programs. Engineering, computer science, some fields of business, nursing, and the health professions. You will find that institutionally, those are expensive programs to offer and to teach, and often seats or capacity, particularly within labs, is limited. So those programs can be particularly competitive. So my advice to families is always, if you're interested in one of those high demand majors, apply and complete your application as early as possible. Don't look at the school's deadline. Okay, the school says I have until January 15th. No, if you want computer science, you want to get your application in October or as soon as you can. Yeah. So keeping an eye to timing, being aware that you can be very well qualified for a program, but as I used to tell the students, if you're slow, you blow it. You're a great student. You're wonderful. We'd love to have you, but you chose to submit your application, later than many other candidates who were equally well qualified. So, and that's a hard pill for young people to swallow often. Yeah. Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah. So we get the application submitted, the colleges do their review process, releasing decisions could be as early as December or January for those students who've applied early action or early decision. Many students and families will have received all of their decisions for all of the colleges and universities they may have applied to, hopefully no later than March or April 1. April 1 is a very common national decision notification date. So most colleges and universities are committed to notifying every candidate of a decision no later than April 1. But hopefully, if you have applied earlier, you are hearing earlier and you are in a better decision as a family, again, to now look at the schools and universities. Okay, I applied to 10 colleges and universities back in October. Okay, here we are in February, March. I've heard from 5 of them. And out of those 5, there are 2 that I'm really still very strongly interested in. I'm waiting to hear from the other 5. What can I do at this point? I can follow up with the other 5. I can make sure that I send out that email, that I double check to make sure nothing was missing, inquire when I might hear of a decision, follow up, follow up, follow up. But hopefully, in March and April, families know 2 things. They know which colleges and universities they've been offered admission to, and they also know or have been offered a financial aid package at those institutions so that they are in a position to review, to compare, to discuss, ultimately what is going to be the best choice. colleges and universities play the odds, okay? Just to give you an example, the institution that I worked for, which was a large public university, would admit a class of roughly 3,000 incoming freshmen annually. For those 3,000 seats, we would receive approximately 15,000 applications. So now a group of those applications would never complete. They'd never complete their stuff, so they would be totally off the table.
Mhm.
A portion of those applications were nowhere near our academic threshold, so we eliminate those. But then there's still a big group in the middle, okay? And out of that group, we would be reviewing and making our decisions. For those 3,000 seats, we would offer admission to at least 9,000 students. Why? Because we're not taking for granted that we're your number one choice. We're not making that assumption. We know that the students that were applying to us were well-qualified students. They have many options, and that they are applying to other institutions. So historically, for every 3 to 4 students who will apply and be admitted to our institution, one will ultimately choose to attend. So colleges and universities in the admission process are backing up or banking on making more offers than we have seats for, because we know that you have also applied to multiple institutions, and your son or daughter can only attend one. So it's yeah. Mhm,
Wow,
mhm,
that's wonderful. That's
yeah.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. That was great. So, I want to ask you a few more questions. I was speaking with a client, parent, recently that went to a college fair, and they learned while there that because their threshold was so high for the test scores, um, they suggested that maybe you don't want to include your test scores,
Mhm,
because test scores now are optional at a lot of institutions.
mhm,
And the student is exceptional,
mhm,
but they don't have a 1600 on their SAT.
mhm.
So I wanted to get your perspective on that strategy.
Well, um, test optional really came about um, shortly before COVID. Several, a couple, one or two highly prestigious institutions tried it and said, let's
Mhm.
see where it goes. And some very fine, small liberal arts institutions gave it a whirl. When COVID came and standardized testing sites were shut down across the country, the game changed for everybody,
Ever. Yep, yep, yep.
forever.
Mhm.
And all of us, for a period of at least 2 years, were making admission decisions without SATs or ACTs because we did not want to disadvantage any student who was not able to, due to the pandemic, to test. And what we found out was that we were all perfectly able to make good decisions and bring in a great student body without the benefit of standardized tests. Now, um, it will take some time, probably 5 to 10 years, to see how that bears out in terms of the students who were admitted without test scores, how successful were they? Did they retain in college, et cetera, et cetera. But I must tell you that from the admissions office perspective, our counselors and staff were so delighted to be unchained from that SAT and to be able to make a case for candidates that they felt strongly about or just felt in their gut would be good students for our school, and be able to say, we know we really don't have to look at an SAT, or we can go ahead and move ahead with making a decision on this student. That being said, I think if you're a competitive student across the board, and I think it's still important to look at the institutional profile of the school. So test optional is a tool, and it is your option. It's there for you. Look at the institutional profile of the incoming class or the historical profile, and gauge whether or not you are competitive on all measures, including grade point average. I must say, if you're not competitive grade point average wise, you're in far more danger than if you're not competitive on the standardized testing level. There's not a lot of wiggle room. And I tell students, that 5-point range is a big range for grade point average. If a college or university is saying, the profile of their incoming class is in the mid to low 90s, then they mean that 75% of their class is 90 or better, basically. Yeah.
You mean 90% in terms of the grade
90%
point
or
average?
better, yeah, is
Mhm.
achieving a 90% or better on a 100
Scale.
scale. However, your grade point average equates to that. So GPA, I tell students, please, 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 be very honest with yourself, okay, they're looking for that 93, 95, et cetera. I have an 85. What are my odds? Not good.
Not good.
Not good. Yeah. Just, I'm not saying don't apply. I'm just saying not good. But on the other hand, the standardized testing profile, 1450, my SAT profile was a 1200 composite. Should I apply? Do you have a very competitive grade point average? Are you able to articulate clearly why you're interested in that college or university? Do you have, again, a strong interest in the programs or the offerings of that college or university? Or do you feel that you're aligned in some way with that mission of that college or university? I read a lovely essay from a young woman who was applying to Mount Holyoke. And she was talking about, her experience as a young person had caused her to be really interested in advocating for others. And she very much really the mission of Mount Holyoke to turn out women who had strong voices and would be strong voices in society really spoke to her. And she was able to weave that into her essay and talk about who she was as a person. And that was a compelling piece of her application, more compelling than test scores for that admissions team. was this young woman really knows what we're about and she wants to be here. She really wants to be here. Whether it's, Spelman, whether it's Howard, whether it's the Ohio State, why do you want to be there? Can you, is it just
Can you
because,
articulate why you want
can
to
you
be there?
articulate it?
Absolutely.
Have those kinds of conversations with your young people. When you talk with them, at the dinner table or on a Saturday morning over, a long breakfast about, well, what are you thinking about in terms of college? When they throw out those names, when they throw out, I want to go to UNC or, I want to go to, University of Michigan, or I'm thinking about, Vassar. Just say why.
Mhm.
Tell me why. Um, Encourage them to, and if the answer is, I heard from my friend that it was a good school, tell them to go back to the drawing board. They can Google faster than you and I can blink an eye. They should be able to give you maybe 3 good reasons that they are interested in the school. Not their friend, not Johnny or Jimmy or their cousin went there or none of that, but they should be able to tell you why they think that might be a school that would be good for them. And it could be as simple as they have the major that I want, or they have a wrestling team and they're near, grandma's, they're up in this area near where grandma is. Okay, good. That's a start.
Mhm.
Um, some of our young people are more sophisticated than others, and they've known for a long time what they want to do and the kind of environment they want to be in and so forth. I wasn't that sophisticated at that age. I had some general sense of things that I enjoyed or wanted to do or thought that I might be good at. But in terms of having that honed in focus, um, I'm not saying that you should expect that of them, but ask them to learn a little bit more about each of the schools that they think they might want to apply to before you start shelling out those application fees.
Mhm. Excellent, excellent. So now, another thing, you mentioned that you were not that sophisticated, neither was I at that stage in my life. And times have changed
Mhm,
very much.
mhm,
So in this day and time, with the issue of affirmative action,
mhm,
um, whether it is intact or
mhm,
it is not intact, and what schools are doing and lawsuits and all of that sort of
mhm,
thing. It's just very um, challenging
mhm,
and disturbing in some way, especially for me and my clientele, which is mostly
mhm,
um, persons of color.
mhm,
So what can you say about that issue,
mhm,
and how do you think people of color can make themselves available to the schools
mhm,
and competitive?
mhm. Hmm, that is a really deep.
The reason I'm asking that is because I
Mhm,
recently,
mhm,
I don't even remember the television show or even the channel, but you know how you pass through the
mhm,
room, and there was a whole discussion going on about
mhm,
lawsuits that have been brought against institutions.
mhm,
Um, and I believe, I didn't stay and look at it,
mhm,
but I believe the point that they were making was that the people who brought these lawsuits won these lawsuits.
mhm, mhm,
And so if one cannot make themselves competitive, at least they should be aware. Their eyes should be opened, and you have definitely, I'm sure, opened many eyes through your conversation today. Um, so what should a person of color know? What do they need to know? What's
I
the
think,
bottom line truth?
okay, a bottom line truth is that institutions are gun shy right now of using race and ethnicity as one of the compelling reasons to admit a student. And again, 30 years ago, when I began in this field, and even as recently as 20 years ago, I could look at a candidate, African American, Latina, and make the case that a student with a 95 average from an underserved high school with lower SATs was equally qualified as a student from an affluent area with an equal grade point average, but maybe higher standardized test scores, on the grounds that one student had more opportunity and more familiarity that gave with testing, standardized testing, and an advantage in that arena. So often we were able to make the case and admit high achieving students from across the spectrum, and also students who may not have been as high achieving, but again, with the information that we receive from their school administrators, et cetera, about their potential, we could move ahead and make sound decisions based on our judgment. Now, our judgment is being judged, and institutions are being audited as these legal cases come up, particularly public institutions. So I worked for the state of New York, a large public university system. University of Michigan has had lawsuits. UT, the University of Texas system, has had lawsuits. You know, University of Maryland, I'm sure, is fending off some. Our state university system initiated an audit of the admission process to see if any of the campuses were unfairly using race in the admission process. So what I would say to you is that all of our colleges and universities are working very hard to develop and implement what we call holistic admission plans, which do not give undue weight to any particular factor, meaning that we look at the individual as a whole, and we look at, strength of the academic curriculum, we look at extracurricular activities, we look at communication skills, we look at letters of recommendation, we look at the essay, we look at special talents as a broad group. That could be anything from the student is gifted in foreign languages to they're great with the captain of the basketball team to they're an oboe player, special talents. So we're trying to give weight to all of these factors, knowing that those factors that carry the most weight are going to be the academic curriculum and the grade point average. Those are the heavy, but what we are putting in place, or what we must be able to defend or show the public, is that we gave consideration to many factors. So my advice to students and families is make sure you're talking about those other things. Number one, make sure that your your foundation stuff is really solid, your curriculum and your grade point average. If that's shaky,
Yeah, it's all shaky.
right.
Yeah.
So I tell people that's the cake.
Mm-hmm.
The icing is the extracurriculars, the letters of recommendation, da 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 da
Mm-hmm.
da. But it's important to have the others and to make sure that the extracurriculars and those personal traits and characteristics that are your strengths and that are kind of what make you unique are spoken about or spoken to in your application. In most cases, we will never meet you. The admissions officers, you know, we don't meet 90% of the people whose applications we review. Or if we meet you, we didn't know that it was your application. You know, we might meet you at a campus visit or an open house, but so know that your application is speaking for you. So I don't know what a leader you are in your church community unless I get a letter that speaks to that, or unless you speak to it somewhere in your application. I don't know that you have always had a strong visual eye and that you can make anything pretty. Whether that's you can, draw a drawing or you just have a gift for putting together things or crafts. I don't know that unless you speak to it or someone else in through your application speaks to that.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that those things are represented. No, we don't need your kindergarten award certificate. No, we don't need every single award you ever won. We want to get a picture of who the young person is right now. And, what are you bringing? Who is this? What are you bringing to the table right
Absolutely.
now? Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you need people, you do need to make sure that's spoken to in the application somehow. If yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Oh,
So,
well,
what is it that I didn't ask you, that I should have asked you, or that you believe parents must know going forward, no matter what? So, I didn't ask you, but you want them to know just the same. Is there
ah,
anything that was left out that's really critical?
I it's I there's so much, and I know each child and each family is individual, but I think uh, uh, something that stood out to me time and time again is um, help your young people to develop strong communication skills. And now more than ever, with their heads down in their phones and their tablets, the I cannot tell you the difference it has made over the years when I've seen a young person come in for an interview and advocate for themselves in, you know, a clear, coherent manner, or when they've just simply been able to sit with me comfortably and have a conversation. Um, that comes from putting your children in situations where they're in an environment with other adults and they're expected to converse. They are expected to converse. Um, it is extremely important, and it can turn the tide. It can be that phone conversation, the phone call to the admissions office, and someone puts that young person on hold and they run down to my office and say, "You've got to talk to this kid. You just need to talk to this kid. He's really, he's so polite, and he's just asking if you'll tell him why he wasn't offered admission. But he was so polite about it. You just have to talk to him. Or the difference between, interviewing a young person and them looking down and not looking at me, and then talking to a young person who, looks you in the eye and kind of smiles when you ask them a question, or thinks about it, or starts to tell you, with enthusiasm, about an activity or so forth. But that doesn't come overnight for many young people, and having them be able to feel comfortable, or be able to feel a little bit confident of, it's fine for you to, you have a voice. It's fine, you speak for yourself, and to again be able to articulate and communicate. Have them get a part-time job. Have them volunteer. Put them in settings where they need to deal. Put them in settings where they need to deal, so that they develop a little bit of a sense of self-confidence, that they're not intimidated when they have to interact outside of their immediate family and social circle. And again, that communication piece is important. Teach them how to compose a business email.
I get it. I get it. Thank you. This was fabulous. Fabulous. I can't thank you enough for sharing all of that. It's priceless, priceless. And so I appreciate you, love you all of these many years, and I'm going to definitely talk to you and see you soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All righty.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.